Yo, guys, welcome to the Blue Podcast. This is the Green Show with me, Mackers and Tom. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, not bad. I'm a little bit tired. Haven't been done my dissertation. This would be out sooner if I didn't wake up this morning at 8 o'clock, open my laptop, and then fall back into sleep till 9, which is my bad. So unfortunately, this episode isn't as early as it usually is. But of course, we are doing Moon Knight episode 6, the last one. We managed to do all 6. I'm pretty proud of us, Tom.
Yeah, it's not been bad, has it? I mean, waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning to get ready for an 8 o'clock show is never the most fun thing in the world. And as you mentioned, your dissertation, I think you're allowed to have it a little bit late today because of doing dissertation last night. So yeah, I think we'll let you off on this one.
Yeah, it's thank you very much, Tom. Thank you. I'm sure I hope everyone else does. Before we get into it, do make sure to like the video if you enjoy this. Subscribe if you're new around here. It really helps us out. We are now, our next milestone is 1,000 subs. So if you want to be part of that gang, that would be greatly appreciated if you do hit that subscribe button. Obviously, spoilers, big spoilers for the whole show, especially episode 6, obviously. And yeah, let's crack on into it. I do want to, before we started this podcast, we did say it felt a bit short, the final episode, didn't it?
Yeah, that was my first impression. It ended very abruptly. I mean, it was sort of a parallel to the first episode. Obviously, not the first moments in the first episode, but you see sort of Stephen running out of bed and then falling over because he's attached to the bed. And that was how he ended off. I don't know. I would have loved to see just a little bit more, maybe an indication of whether he's still Moon Knight or not. Maybe even, I mean, the end credits.
They kind of do say that though, don't they, in the post-credits?
I know, but the end credit scene concluded things like quite nicely, but I'd have just liked to see a bit more from the actual show itself. I mean, when I saw the runtime was 42 minutes, that was a little bit disappointing. It was the shortest episode of the lot, and traditionally with the other shows, we've had like really long finales. So yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are about the runtime.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a bit short. That could have been a budget thing because, I mean, bloody hell, that was big budget for that final episode. It could have been a budget thing. Could have been just a timing thing. They couldn't keep, like, Oscar Isaac's probably a busy guy or someone else. Couldn't have him for the whole time. But yeah, it was an interesting one. Excuse me.
Bless you. No, it could have been just a creativity thing. They just figured, let's not drag this one out.
Excuse me.
Bless you again. We've seen in the past shows, we've had WandaVision, it was very drawn out ending. But they needed that because they needed the closure of explaining the Vision stuff and how this entire world was made. But we didn't really need too much explaining to do with Moon Knight. I'll be honest, I'd have you're dying over there, aren't you? Oh my Lord. Okay, yeah, I'd have loved to see a little bit more explanation, perhaps into the psych ward. I mean, they leave that relatively open-ended. They kind of just say, yeah, like this is in his imagination. But I would have liked maybe a bit more explanation. Like Harrow's feet are bleeding, and they just completely don't mention anything to do with that, and they just leave it. It's like, oh yeah, Stephen and Mark are now in control until the end credit scene, of course. Yes.
Not even the end credit scene, till the fight with Arthur Harrow, where obviously they find out that they kind of, this is the moment that, excuse me, they clock obviously that there is a third personality because Mark can tell it wasn't Stephen, and Stephen can tell it wasn't Mark. So I think that was the moment they realised there is something else going on.
Yeah, I think they hint at it a lot at the very beginning of the episode. It was almost like, okay, we've shown you tiny glimpses that you'd only pick up on if you're really paying attention. But now, like, okay, there's going to be a third personality. There's going to be Jake Lockley. Like, audience, pay attention. Like, we're going to tell you it's coming. Because even in the sort of the previously on Moon Knight bit, we had the sarcophagus that was like shaking, the one that they never opened. But they never opened it before, but they kept like referencing it. So they did that right at the start of the episode. Then we had Harrow talking about it, like, oh, and whoever else is in there. It's like, could it be a more blatant pile of foreshadowing just to talk about for the rest of the episode? But yeah, I think after that, it was always coming. And I think Mark and Stephen know about it now, and it'll be very interesting to see where that takes them. Yeah, so Max has just said he's going to go and blow his nose. So I'll keep you guys entertained with more theories on Mark and Stephen going forward into the MCU. So for the next sort of project that they're involved in, what my own personal thoughts, I love to see them part of like Dane Whitman, Blade, like a little trio there. I can't remember the name of the trio, but it's sort of like a vampire, like operating in the night, bit dark, bit gritty. I'd love to see them as part of that, because I think obviously you got three fantastic actors there in Mahershala Ali, who Oscar Isaac and Kit Harington. Like they're all great actors, and I'd love to see them going forward as a little trio in the MCU. Obviously, we've seen Mahershala Ali show up with Dane Whitman at the end of Eternals. So, Tom, I was just saying to the vast amount of viewers that we'll be getting on this video, that it will be very interesting to see where Mark and Stephen go after this in terms of the MCU. I think this was a topic we were going to leave to the end of the video, but thought I'd sneak it in now. And I was saying, do you remember the name of the trio? It's sort of like Blade, Dane Whitman, and Moon Knight. Because I could not.
The Midnight Suns.
That's the one. Yeah, the Midnight Suns. Because that would be very cool to see in the MCU.
Yes. Yeah. No, I know. I remember you being quite keen for a cameo of some kind, but I think the way that they wanted to do Moon Knight was kind of keep it quite
self-contained,
yeah, so that they can put it up for that TV show Oscar thing where it's I think that's it. But yeah, I mean I did like the post-credit scene, to be fair, because you felt like there had to be that post-credit scene, to be honest. Had to, like the way that they ended it had to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would have been nice to see a little, maybe even like Blade's voice again, maybe like even just his voice. And then they could have had the post-credit scene actually just at the end, or even 2 post-credit scenes, maybe. But yeah, I think it's more of a logistical thing that they had to do it that way, rather than the way that they. Marvel don't want to necessarily give the Marvel fans everything that they want. Otherwise, we'd get too greedy, and we.
Well, Tom, hang on a minute, mate, because Doctor Strange is coming out tomorrow, and by the sounds of it, the cameos in that are going to be endless. So I know what you're saying. They don't want to completely satisfy everything that the Marvel fan base wants, because they want us to be sort of like looking for a bit more. I mean, the amount of speculation that people did with like Mephisto and WandaVision and stuff like that sort of just shows you that they can just produce that by not giving us exactly what the fans want, like you were saying.
Yeah, and obviously you just given a little teaser for what's to come. Obviously, Doctor Strange is tomorrow. We're both going to watch it. And you'll be seeing a Doctor Strange video very, very soon with our analysis, as we always seem to be doing now for Marvel. I know I said I wouldn't throw this in, but I might as well. We are in the process of sorting out a very high production, not just like this podcast for I guess you guys to watch. And yeah, it's I won't say what it is yet, but it's going to be a very exciting thing that will probably be not this weekend, next weekend for you guys to enjoy, just to kind of fill in, obviously, whilst we won't have any Moon Knight or Marvel movies out for a little bit.
Yeah, just follow on from what you say there, Tom. We won't give anything away just yet, but it is going to be a very special episode. We've put a lot of time and effort into it already, and we're going to make it as high quality for you guys as possible.
Ooh. Couldn't have said it better, mate. Let's get back to Moon Knight. Obviously, the post-credit scene, we see Jake Lockley, who seems like almost a fail-safe. It seems like maybe Khonshu picked Mark Spector because Jake Lockley was there, rather than because of his skills. Because Jake Lockley's kind of a fail-safe, as it seems to be, for the 4 of them, in a sense. Obviously Khonshu, Mark, Stephen, and Jake Lockley. He seems to be the fail-safe option of, oh, we're going to die. Don't worry, Jake Lockley is just going to take over and kill everyone. Or Mark and Stephen won't kill Arthur Harrow, don't worry, Jake Lockley will. Like things like that. So it's an interesting question that I thought of was, did maybe Khonshu pick Mark knowing that there was this third personality intentionally? Because he almost seemed to, like, Jake Lockley knew Khonshu was using him and he seemed happy about it.
Yeah, well, I think you've described it nicely there as Jake Lockley is Khonshu's failsafe. We don't know exactly the history of the background or why Jake Lockley is so loyal to Khonshu, or even, well, we don't know anything about Jake Lockley, to be honest. I mean, he's not Spanish or Hispanic in the comics, and he is here. But yeah, you're right. Like, Jake Lockley sort of cleans up the mess that Mark and Steven potentially leave, or rather, where Mark and Steven don't do what Khonshu wants, Jake Lockley's there to do it. Yeah. Again, like I mentioned, we don't know anything about him, so we don't know how or why he's so powerful or brutal or violent. But yeah, every situation that Mark or Steven's been in that's potentially they're not like necessarily winning or doing exactly as Khonshu wants, Jake Lockley's taken over and it killed everyone, essentially. I think that's about as polite as we can be about it. He's just gone and killed everyone.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just like that in Egypt when Mark came back around and pulling a knife out of someone's chest, and then that was Jake. And then fighting against Arthur Harrow. It was a bit of a shame we didn't. I'd have liked to see when Jake Lockley took over in the fight against Arthur Harrow. I'd have liked to see just that change, and then obviously that would show Oscar Isaac's like acting ability if it just changed and it was clearly Jake speaking Spanish and he just mullered everyone. But I mean, they're going for a stylistic thing, you can tell with the whole thing, and obviously we don't really. I think they want Jake Lockley to be shrouded in this mystery because the whole of the first few episodes is not Mark.
Well, it's like I know what you're saying.
It's like Steven doesn't know what's happening, so we don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
And now, obviously, Mark and Steven don't know what's happening, so we don't know what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it was very interesting to see that, like, they did reveal him at the end, obviously, but as you mentioned, like, we're in the finale. There's like 10 minutes to go of the episode, and we're still being kept in the dark. Like, we don't know how Jake Lockley fights. And I'd assume they're going to reveal that at some point, especially going forward. Like Moon Knight, we'd imagine is going to be in a lot of Marvel content going forward, whether it's shows or shows or films. So it will be interesting. I think I touched on it earlier in terms of the future of Moon Knight, but it will be very interesting to see how they approach dealing with Jake Lockley and exploring all that background, because they've been able to explore sort of Steven and Steven's conception so well because they're doing it in the show format, but we're not getting season 2 by the sounds of it. So how are they going to explain Jake Lockley to the same extent as Steven, or are they just going to leave that as a bit of a mystery and then he'll show up in a film? Go on.
I think they'll leave it a mystery till they do a movie on him.
And you think he'll get a solo film?
Not yet. I think, like I said before, like I think it will be a while till we get one, but eventually we will get one. And I don't think they'll they'll do the thing of like they've done in previous Marvel movies where they know that there's a big movie coming up, etc., etc. They'll tease tiny little things, which at the time you don't really know what it means, but when you look back on it, you're like, oh, that means that. So they'll probably do that, things like that, just little teasers and like if there's a Midnight Suns movie or whatever before Moon Knight, and like they're all getting stiffed over and then he blacks out and then they're not getting stiffed over. Like they'll do little things like that, I think, maybe. And then eventually they'll do like once maybe even 5 years after the Oscars they can do season 2 because they've got the Oscar now or whatever. So maybe
season 2 is just pure fan service with Blade and Dane Whitman just coming in, and
maybe that would be nice. That would be nice. Yeah. We'll touch more on on the future of Moon Knight and the MCU because of it, because it kind of seemed to leave it with some major ramifications. But obviously, Layla is Tararet's avatar. I didn't know this would happen. I won't lie. I've never seen it happen before. I do like the design. And obviously, she's an Egyptian superhero, which rung a bell. That bit rung a bell about being an Egyptian superhero, but I don't know. I don't know much else about that. She seemed pretty cool. She obviously doesn't. She's not invincible like Moon Knight in a sense that she did seem to have to block everything, whereas Moon Knight just kind of takes it.
Yeah. Like you were mentioning, I don't think either of us speculated that Layla could potentially become an avatar. And even when we saw Taweret, we definitely didn't think, okay, this automatically means that Layla's going to become Tawaret's avatar. I think it is a nice touch, though, especially like you mentioned, she was an Egyptian, like the little kid mentions, oh, are you an Egyptian superhero? I think that's just a nice little nod. Like the film's been set in Egypt for the majority of it. It's Egyptian gods. It's just a nice little sort of side note to go, oh yeah, we have an Egyptian superhero now. It's just appealing to the masses essentially. When you mentioned you've heard that before, the only Egyptian superhero in like Marvel stuff I could think of is Storm. I mean, in X-Men Apocalypse, I don't know if you saw that, but she grew up in Egypt. I don't know how comic accurate that is, but that's how they portrayed it in that film. But besides that, like, yeah, she's not invincible. Clearly, she's blocking everything. It was very reminiscent of Falcon, actually, especially a lot of the scenes from Falcon and Winter Soldier where he's using his wings like quite creatively to block and attack. It did remind me a lot of that. Yeah, I think the costume looks great. We don't know the name of the avatar yet. That was the other thing. It was never given a name. Obviously, Moon Knight was only actually like named in episode 5. But yeah, it sort of cut away when Taweret was about to like induct her.
Yes. Well, and she seems pretty powerful. I won't lie. And like ripping car doors off is pretty much ease. But why do you think Arthur Harrow was so much more powerful than them?
I'm just assuming it's because Amit was clearly so much more powerful than Khonshu. I assume it's just like an extension of her power, and therefore she can give him more power than Khonshu can give Moon Knight. And I can't imagine Tawaret's the most powerful warrior anyway, which is why Layla is so inferior compared to like Mark and Harrow. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, and we might as well touch on, I guess, the elephant in the room or the crocodile in the room. The CG took a bit of a step forward in this episode for sure. Obviously, the fight between Ahmet and Khonshu, which I don't think anyone particularly expected. They kept that very quiet. That there would be this ginormous God v God battle. I would be interested to know the number of people that died during it because they seemed to crush a lot of buildings. And we got the purple sky laser.
Yes, we got the sky beam. I think we touched on it last episode, but it wouldn't really be a Marvel show without a sky beam. And yeah, they nailed it this time. Big purple one in the sky. But yeah, you mentioned with Amit, they definitely did not make any mention, even in the sort of like the promotional footage that they showed for episode 6, nothing on Amit or what Amit would look like. And yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, she looks great. Like, it was fantastic CGI.
Very, very good.
It was very well done. And for a TV show as well. I mean, obviously we know it's the Marvel shows. They've got enormous budgets, but compared to pretty much any other TV show out there, obviously maybe barring the Star Wars stuff, it's incredible CGI. And yeah, the fact that we saw 2 enormous, completely CGI'd like Egyptian gods having a fight was something that I did not expect I would receive from a Marvel TV show.
Yeah, and I felt they got the size right as well in terms of, you know, sometimes with CGI, if you make a character really big, they can move as if the surrounding area was small rather than them being so big. Whereas they actually seem to get the sense of power with as Khonshu went for the punch. It is slow because obviously they are humongous in size, and you could see the impact when he hits the floor and things like that. An interesting note on Khonshu is obviously they hinted at the fact that he's not as powerful as he used to be. Obviously, his I can't remember what the when they get turned to stone thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, he and in Egyptian history, he's not a bonehead. He's not a bonehead. He's got actually a real life bird's head, like Tauret, like Ahmet, who aren't made of bones. So obviously, there's something has happened to him, and he's not as powerful as he used to be, by the sounds of things. Do you think that's time, or he's just slowly losing his power?
Well, I don't think we need to read too much into it beyond it just him aging. I think Amit mentioned that he looks old, and I think there was something else. I can't remember who it was, but in episode 3, when he was sort of imprisoned, the avatar that the one of music and romance or whatever it was, she was saying that he's gotten old, that sort of thing. So I think it is just him aging, slowly losing his power. But I don't think it's affected his avatar's ability to. I don't think Moon Knight will gradually lose power as Khonshu does. I just think it's Khonshu himself is obviously clearly inferior to Amit, and that's just a result of that.
Fair enough. Obviously, Ahmet was slightly wiping the floor with Khonshu, sucking in all those souls that in the future would be bad, rather than have done anything bad yet, which is obviously the whole. It seems to be the moral thing that Marvel are kind of going down right now. Is should everyone's life be preset? Obviously, we had that with Loki. Now we're having that with this. Is everyone's life preset, and is it moral to just either stop someone's life or be in complete control of someone's life, which it's not. So that's obviously what the MCU is going down. I like the fact that they can now switch very easily. Mr. Knight and Moon Knight. Obviously, the suit does appear in the final credit scene, which is an interesting thing to see Khonshu in. But yeah, Stephen has got much more adept at fighting. Obviously, when he said, "I've got some new skills." Do you think that's just something we didn't see on screen, or he now trusts himself?
I think that was more last episode where he comes to realization that he is Mark. So if Mark can do anything, surely he can also do it. I like what you said. Yeah, he said he's got new skills, and it was actually very Daredevil-esque, I thought, especially with the 2 batons that he had as well, throwing those, catching them. And it's very well choreographed. Obviously, it's a Marvel show. But the fighting I thought was really good, especially from Mr. Knight, because obviously we've not really seen that before from him. We've sort of seen him as Stephen just learning. But now this was like not necessarily fully fledged Mr. Knight, but a strong version. But he still kept sort of the mannerisms and nuances of Stephen Grant. Like, he's British. Like, I think there was one moment where he was like rolling up his sleeves before he went and hit one of the goons. So it's definitely still Stephen Grant, but with definitely a lot more power.
Definitely. And I mean, that's pretty much the episode. Obviously, Ahmet gets put into the mortal body of Arthur Harrow. Arthur Harrow gets killed by Jake Lockley, which may have some interesting ramifications for the future of Moon Knight itself. Probably not the whole of the MCU, but I want to talk about the fact that, what does this mean for the MCU? We've got gods battling in front of everyday people in the pyramids of Egypt, and like, Marvel seems to be kind of glossing over slightly the major celestial god things that seem to be happening right now. Obviously, we had the Celestials and Eternals, where an Eternal came up out of the earth, and then also another one appeared in front of half of the earth, just a big face. And now also we've got 2 giant Egyptian gods battling it out in Cairo. Why are they glossing over this so much?
Yeah, I was going to say, you touched on it quite nicely. There's kind of a lot of world-ending events taking place for, it seems like there's so many world-ending events taking place that the world probably should have just ended by now. Like, people are still looking up at the sky and going, oh, the purple laser beam, this is scary, when they literally saw this massive, like, whatever faith you are as a human at this point, whatever faith you have, surely it must have changed. Like, if you're Christian and you see that massive thing in the massive celestial in Eternals come down, you're like, is that God? Like, there's so many questions, and it touches on the fate and free will themes that you mentioned earlier, in terms of having people, like, can people become good if they are always going to be bad? But it's very some very deep themes centered around a show that is about a superhero. So I think Marvel are doing a good job with that. But yeah, as you mentioned, there's kind of a lot going on, and Egyptian gods battling it out whilst a celestial rises from the center of the earth, and there's just a hand there always. Yeah, it kind of seems like the multiverse is ready to sort of expand, because this one Earth might just not be enough to handle everything that's going on.
And obviously there is more worlds about to enter the fray, I'm very sure, come tomorrow, which would be very, very exciting. What do you think, in your opinion, we'll wrap this up nicely, is the future of Moon Knight?
I think the Midnight Suns group that he's in with Dane Whitman and Blade is the future. I just can't see him being like a member of the Avengers. He's just in the comics, especially, he's too dark and gritty and very solo. And I think Dane Whitman and Blade are both characters like that as well. Like Black Knight obviously is Dane Whitman, and I think that's his future. I'd love to see a season 2. I don't think we'll get it. And then I don't think we'll get a solo film for a very long time. I think the way he'll sort of appear is cameos in the second Eternals film, which I'm assuming Dane Whitman / Black Knight will be in, and then cameos in Blade as well, because obviously we know Blade's coming very soon. Potentially even cameos in multiverse-related stuff. Maybe even, this might be a far reach, but Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I would love to see him just crop up in that as like a random hero that they throw in. Although I think it's far more likely we'll get potentially even like the new White Vision and something like that. But yeah, what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I pretty much exactly agree, to be honest. I think exactly the same will happen as you, in terms of what will happen. And yeah, it's a bit of a shame we won't get season 2, but I mean, I trust Marvel at this point, to be honest. I don't see what they can do wrong. And on like, obviously, Marvel are touching the dark themes and doing a good job of it. I think that's because they're going to have to start maturing, because a lot of their original fan base, like us, are getting older.
Yeah.
It's what there was a series of some kind, I can't remember, either a movie series or a TV series, where they spoke about how they matured. The TV show made sure to mature over time, make it more like dark. Oh no, it wasn't that. It was a Sidemen. Oh, I'm being an idiot, or something like that.
No way you're referencing the Sidemen.
No, I'm not referencing the Sidemen. But it's like someone was analysing something, and it's about how sometimes you do have to mature your content. Otherwise, you
lose fan base as they grow up. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, I was thinking about the shows that you could possibly be referencing. I was thinking of the DC stuff like Arrow, Flash, that sort of thing. I was thinking,
no, it wasn't that.
That literally went
that went the opposite direction.
Yeah. That dematured. Yeah.
No, it wasn't that. It definitely was not that. But yeah, it is an interesting thought that maybe Marvel might have in mind, because I remember, obviously, 14 years ago, the first Iron Man now?
Yeah, 2008, wasn't it? Yeah.
14 years ago. And I mean, yeah, if you tried to do the same kind of, not very, don't get me wrong, they do, like, they're quite mature. Obviously, you get people beating the crap out of each other and stuff like that. But I think, obviously, 14 years of aging, especially the first like group of people that became Marvel fans like us, I guess, is you do need to mature with them. just an interesting thought, I thought.
Yeah, definitely. It's like they need some richer themes in there, talking about fate and free will, for instance. It can't just be all out action, which, don't get me wrong, nobody would complain about really, but it is nice to have some deeper underlying things to consider and some real like considerations on the world building in terms of long lasting events. Like it would be a very Marvel thing to do, to have a film come out in the next 14 years and it will make a reference to the hand that we saw in Eternals, the celestial hand that came up. I think it would be a very Marvel thing to do something like that. And I just hope, yeah, like you say, we're in safe hands. Like they know exactly what they're doing. So it'll be great to see what they do with Moon Knight in the future.
Very excited. Lots to look forward to. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm slightly more excited about what happens tomorrow than I am the future of Moon Knight right now. I will say it. I will say it.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I am buzzing for tomorrow. I don't think there's I think maybe Obi-Wan Kenobi in terms of the Star Wars stuff is a close second, but Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness is, ever since Spider-Man came out, I think this is the thing I've been most looking forward to, and hopefully they don't disappoint.
I'm sure they won't. I'm sure they won't. We'll have our analysis coming to you very soon. And if you did enjoy our Moon Knight mini series, I hope you guys did. And if you did like it, the video. Subscribe if you're new around here. Greatly appreciate it. Check out all our socials. All the links are down below. And yeah, see you guys maybe on Friday. Cheers.